Today on InGrace, we're going north to Alaska. We're taking a creation cruise to see God's beautiful creation. Are you looking for hope? My amazing parents taught me to look for hope in the Lord, and that gave me a passion to explore God's incredible creation. I'm Jim Scudder Jr. Let's go on an adventure together and find hope in grace. Welcome to InGrace. I'm Jim Scudder Jr. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to take a cruise to Alaska? Well, we're going to show you what it's like. We're on a beautiful ship, the Holland America flagship, Amsterdam. What's in Alaska? Well, there's beautiful places like Ketchikan and Juneau and Skagway. We're going to see glaciers. We're going to see bear. We're going to see whales. Join us on an adventure as we talk about creation and God's beautiful, beautiful scenery here in Alaska. Our adventure begins in Seattle, Washington, a city on the beautiful Puget Sound. The excitement of seeing a new part of God's amazing creation was making me anxious to get going. Finally, the ship's horn sounded, and our giant hotel smoothly slipped away from civilization. For several days, we would cruise north. I had visited Alaska before, but never to the Alaskan Panhandle. Traveling with Karen and I were a group of InGrace friends, and we also had a creation speaker with us who would help us fully appreciate this majestic land. We arrived at the 5th most populous city in the state of Alaska. Population, 8,000. We arrived at Ketchikan, the salmon capital of the world. This place attracted the Tlingit Native Alaskans for centuries. Karen and I looked over the long list of shore excursions, and one stood out, to me at least, combining two of the things I really like, eating crab and a float plane flight. We disembarked the ship and were on a bus heading toward a remote lodge for lunch, when suddenly,
as we're getting ready to go over this bridge, I look up and I see a bear in the creek there trying to look for food. So I yelled, just naturally, "Bear!" So the bus driver stopped and he's like, "Wow, that's amazing." And he's like, "I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways." And he kind of pulled over so we could all get our cameras out, and we snapped a couple of pictures. So that was like on our first day in Alaska. So that was really, really fun.
We're at the George Inlet Lodge, and this is a former cannery, and we're here to eat Dungeness crab. You see this big carving of the crab behind me, one of the most delicate, sweet crabs you'll ever taste. This historic lodge is rustic yet elegant, and they catch their own Dungeness crab. You can't get any fresher than this. Now it's time for a feast, and we were seated next to a couple from South Dakota that weren't with our InGrace group, but they had watched us on television. Small world. We instantly became friends, and the steaming crab just kept coming. And I don't know. I don't want to hold anybody up. No. I'd hate to miss the ship.
Go for it.
The crab was great, but the float plane, and it was a otter. These are really, really old but rugged airplanes. Oversized radial engine on this. We climb in, and the pilot tells me to sit up front. I'm like, "Okay, if you want me to. Do you want me to help you fly?" He's like, "No, don't touch anything." But a float plane's pretty neat.
Yeah, that was neat.
And it's nice because you can land almost anywhere, and if the engine dies, you have an option.
They said we were very fortunate to have such a clear day.
Yeah.
Usually it's raining here, and it was beautiful. It's just a different perspective. You know, when you're driving through it, it's one way, but when you're flying over it, then just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Some of our InGrace group took a different excursion in Ketchikan, a sightseeing adventure into the amazing 2.2 million acre Misty Fjords National Monument.
We went and got on a very fast boat. It was a catamaran, and it was traveling around 30 miles an hour. But as we were transiting to the fjords, we were going through these massive fog banks.
This mist just rolled in. For some reason, it just gave me so much peace. It was just such a peaceful environment. As it broke open again into blue skies with the beautiful surroundings, it just was a feeling of be still and know that I am God. And I just really enjoyed that moment.
You look up on the mountains and you see these where there's full pine trees and then sections where it's just bushes. And what that's from is from avalanches coming down and wiping out sections of trees. It was really cool to see the growth coming back alive after an avalanche.
You saw this just amazing vista open up to you with all the different seabirds, sea creatures, rocks, eagles.
And then we saw some harbor seals and a couple waterfalls, and it was beautiful.
I was fascinated by the icebergs. It was like, oh, are we gonna hit this?
It was a very scenic location.
It was just amazing.
It was beautiful, just beautiful and peaceful.
The creation that he has made truly does bring him so much glory, and it evidences his power and his all-knowingness, and it's just incredible to see everything he's done for us.
So that's a shore excursion. You can do these at almost any stop, and we'll be likely doing others, but I just love seeing creation.
Yeah.
And the beauty.
Gorgeous.
And God is just so genius, and what we're seeing is just breathtaking.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get on the ship, huh?
Okay, let's go.
If Ketchikan was this great, it would be hard to imagine how the other ports of call could be as good. But they were. Our next stop was actually not a port, but a fjord. Our ship slowly sailed into the ever-tightening passage of silky smooth, silk green water called the Tracy Arm. Named after the Secretary of the Navy in the 1890s, Benjamin Franklin Tracy. While in the Tracy Arm, I got to talk with our creation expert, Bruce Malone. Bruce spent 27 years as a research scientist for the Dow Chemical Corporation. His research has resulted in 18 patents, and he's spoken all over the world. You're very scientific-minded, and you've studied all of these things. Did you always see it this way?
No, well, this is the tragedy of the American education and Western world education system. They assume naturalism. They assume everything made itself. And those things that contradict that idea are not shown to students. So as I came up through my education, loved science, loved figuring out how do things work, I was trained to think in only one way. Everything made itself. Cosmic evolution, biological evolution, chemical evolution. It's all a fact of science. It's all I ever heard.
What changed then? How did you come to this understanding that God did create these?
Honestly, God had to hit me over the head with a 2x4. I mean, I actually ended up with a double pneumonia, lost 40 pounds, was at the point of death. The doctors actually told my wife, you should be prepared for him to die. And then all of a sudden I got better. And the doctor said, well, the drugs kicked in, but I was told viral pneumonia. Well, drugs don't fix viruses. And it was God trying to get my attention. And I really started to think, is this all there is to life? Is it just earn some money, raise a family, you die and turn back to dust? And I started looking a little deeper. And at that moment, a man came to the church where we're married at, and I was a little intrigued, and he had a lecture on creation, and he started talking about the worldwide flood and showing the evidence that it was real, that fossils don't form today. There had to be something different that happened in the past. That the rock layers had to form rapidly and covering the entire regions of the earth. All of this is evidence that there's soft tissue from dinosaurs found in dinosaurs, which means they can't be millions of years old. The rocks can't be millions of years old. And I realized if that's true, everything I've been taught in school is a misinterpretation. It's not a fact of science. The more I studied it, the more I realized the Bible has a much better model, a much better answer and explanation for the past and the history of this planet than what I had been told.
You're invited to come on a creation cruise with us to Alaska. We are going to see the beauty of God's creation. You don't want to miss this InGrace adventure. Please join us on our creation cruise.
Experience the InGrace Alaska cruise. You will be able to meet Jim Scudder and hear in-depth apologetics and teachings from him, as well as Dr. Bruce Malone. You will also be joined by special guests from Answers in Genesis like Mark Loy, Dr. Danny Faulkner, and Dr. Georgia Purdom. Get your free brochure today by calling 855-890-0676 or visit our website at ingrace.tv/travel.
Bruce, here we are in the Tracy Arm in Alaska, just beautiful. And I'm wondering, how in the world did a ship this size get into this narrow fjord?
With great skill of the
we
captain.
have an excellent captain,
Yeah.
I hope. Anyways, we're heading back out. We went all the way up and we saw a black bear.
We did. It's just wandering along in one of the waterfalls coming down.
When we first saw it, though, it looks a little, and I was thinking it had to be like a little muskrat or something. And then we put the binoculars, like, that's a black bear. And it wasn't teeny, it wasn't huge, but it was a black bear.
The scale and scope of what God has done in these areas is astounding.
And here we have rocks, obviously, on either side of us. And describe a little bit about what the rocks that we're seeing here.
Well, what we're looking at are creation rocks. Granite is like the foundation that most of the earth is built upon. During the flood of Noah, it pulverized this earth, grinding all this rock up that would lay down as sedimentary rock on top of it. The real question of this Tracy Arm area is, in fjords all through Europe, you have these deep, deep channels filled with this gorgeous water that's flowing off the surrounding area and the glaciers.
Yeah, and the water.
And the water.
It is just beautiful, the color.
And it is suspended, ground up material from glaciers.
From the runoff.
The
melting
runoff running across the glaciers, the
Yeah.
surrounding sediment where it has been laid down, and it just carries this suspended material, makes it a just a gorgeous turquoise water.
Yeah, and that's what people are commenting on as we get up into these fjords, is how beautiful the water is. Now, the glaciers are also really interesting as we come up into these places, but there was a time in which there was an ice age, and creation in the Bible wouldn't deny that, actually would explain the ice age.
Some people are confused by the ice age. They hear constantly there have been dozens of ice ages over hundreds of thousands or millions of years. Now, that's all misinterpretation that leaves out what God has told us. God spent more time talking about this world restructuring flood than the creation of the entire universe in the book of Genesis.
The flood helps us understand a lot of ice would have been on this
The ice
planet.
age is a guaranteed consequence of this flood event. See, the flood wasn't just a bunch of water and then it ran off the land. It lasted an entire year. During the flood, the fountains of the great deep broke forth. That was not just water subterraneanly coming up, but enormous amounts of fluid rock, lava, pouring out, creating a large part of Africa, Australia, the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington. The continents themselves, huge plates of rock, were moving during this flood. India slamming up into Europe. You look at these surrounding cliffs, those are granite. Those did not exist before the flood. That is foundational rock that was shoved upward as continental plates slammed together, forming the Rockies, the Indias.
And the continental plates are still moving slowly,
They are,
of
slowly.
course, but that's what causes earthquakes.
But that's an assumption that because they're moving slowly,
They always
people who leave the Bible out say they were always moving that slowly.
Right.
That's not a fact of science,
Right.
that's an assumption.
Ice age can be explained by a flood, and that's actually the only way we can understand it.
It's not just explained by the flood, it is guaranteed consequence of not just a flood, but an entire globe covering flood. You see, all this volcanism, all this land movement, it would have heated up the entire oceans of the world.
The amount of water wasn't necessarily from above as much as from the fountains of the Great Deep.
Heaving up of the ocean bottoms,
And
the
there would have been
enormous subterranean
warm water coming
rushing
up
out
as well.
Warm water, volcanism,
Friction.
land movement, friction. It's heating up the ocean. We don't know, but the Arctic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, they may have been 70, 80 degrees Fahrenheit by the time this was all over. Now, that is so much water and so much heat. The weather patterns of the world are driven by ocean water temperature. That caused massive amounts of evaporation, massive cloud cover worldwide, meaning more of the sun's heat is reflected away, and that evaporated water would have come down as snow in the northern latitudes. So
Now, how thick was the ice?
Many experts believe the entire oceans of the world lowered in the range of 200 to 300 feet during the ice age. That's how much water was evaporated. Now that comes down as snow. It takes about 10 inches of snow that compacts to form 1 inch of ice. It's believed ice sheets covering Canada, this area of Alaska, they were as much as 2 miles deep. Now that's trillions of pounds of ice. And when that weight shoves those ice sheets forward, fill up existing valleys between mountains that had been shoved up in the later stages of the flood, forming glaciers that moved forward, digging out enormous valleys, which we call fjords. That's why this huge U-shaped valley exists. It was filled with thousands of feet of ice, shoving itself forward, grinding up the rocks, creating a powder. But it did not take tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. The ice age literally started immediately following the flood. Lots of evaporation coming down as snow in the north, building up as ice sheets in the north. And that's what caused the glaciers that formed these sort of valleys. The past was very different than today. And when we leave the Bible out of our thinking, we misinterpret the past.
Sadly, we left the Tracy Arm behind and sailed slowly toward Juneau. Almost the entire time we were on the ship, the sailing was extremely smooth because of the many islands blocking the waves' ability to build. These scenic islands also gave us a non-stop panoramic view. We arrived at the only state capital in America inaccessible by road, Juneau. Our group would go on several exciting shore excursions, a few went whale watching, and my wife Karen and her friend Denise went dog sledding in the summer.
Denise and I decided to go see a dog mushing camp. And of course there was no snow, so we knew we weren't going to be on a dog sled, but they had this other four-wheeled kind of a sled thing that the dog musher steered. And so we got to go on a 1.5 mile trail with the dogs barking and yapping and all excited to be doing their thing. So that was really interesting. That was fun to do. And then we got to play with the puppies. They weren't little puppies, they were 11 weeks old, so they were kind of big dogs, but they were very cute.
I just got off a dog sled. Pretty cool. I thought I would want it on snow, but actually I don't.
We had our mind set on we're going to see whales and we're going to get them on photo, video, everything. So we ignored the wind, the cold, the wet.
I was on the top deck and, looking for a distant blow spout when all of a sudden 3 whales came by the boat. We get sprayed with the water from the whale's blowhole. Wow. Like, God has created so many incredible things for us to enjoy, and that was just really a special moment.
The orca.
Yes.
Which is called the killer whale, but
it's
the name isn't right.
It is actually much more closely related genetically to the dolphin family. Which is just a quick teaching. When God said he created very different kinds of animals to reproduce after their own kind, it doesn't mean they're cookie cutter carbon copies. He built in the genetic code of a kind the ability to vary and create this enormous beauty, variety, and diversity of life within an animal kind. So you have small gray dolphins and bottlenose dolphins, and you have orcas, but they're all the dolphin kind.
There's so much variety that got built into the DNA code that you can see the variety in an orca, but we say whale, killer whale, not a whale.
They do love to eat other fish. They will swallow entire seals. Now there's not a lot of accounts of orcas killing human beings. They don't do that. That's more mythology. But one of the amazing things, just one little kind of fascinating creation of God, is the intelligence of these creatures. See, they coordinate as a pod of orcas, and they will swim in a circular pattern when they find a school of fish. They will click with their mouth. They'll shoot up streams of bubbles in a circular pattern, packing the fish tighter and tighter until they're literally boiling on top of the water. Then they'll take their huge tails and they'll slap the water and stun those herring or those fish. And then they'll eat the ones that are stunned and keep doing it until they're filled. Now, in order to do this, they're communicating. They're literally clicking, blowing, and telling the whales on each side where to be, where to blow, where to spin, where to flash their white undersides in order to form this coordinated, communicating community to do this. Now, how does that happen? How does the first whale say, well, I'm going to turn, and when I turn, you turn on the other side in order to corral? It's built into their instincts. Instincts don't just happen. They're part of the programming God built into these animals in order to survive. God gave us creation so we would know He exists. It says that in Romans 1:19 and 20. By observing creation, you'll know God exists.
Hope you've enjoyed our adventure here in Alaska. What a beautiful land, what a beautiful place. And to think that God created this. The sad thing is we've messed it up. Sin has messed it up. And before I go, and we're going to tell you more next week about Alaska, before I go, let me tell you something that it will change your life if you understand this. See, God created the world, we sinned, and God loves us, but God has to punish sin. So what are we going to do? We have this is sin and this is us. We have sinned and we've fallen short of the glory of God. Jesus came, He's the Son of God. He never sinned. He became sin for us. He died on a cross and rose again. And anyone who believes in Him has eternal life. Do you see that? That's the gift of eternal life. A lot of people have come to Alaska for adventure, for sightseeing, or maybe even for gold. But you know what? What we found in Alaska is God created the world. God has redeemed the world. If you'll put your trust in Him, you'll have something far greater than gold. You'll have everlasting life. You're invited to come on a creation cruise with us to Alaska. We are going to see the beauty of God's creation. You don't want to miss this InGrace adventure. Please join us on our creation cruise.
Experience the InGrace Alaska cruise. You will be able to meet Jim Scudder and hear in-depth apologetics and teachings from him, as well as Dr. Bruce Malone. You will also be joined by special guests from Answers in Genesis like Mark Loy, Dr. Danny Faulkner, and Dr. Georgia Purdom. Get your free brochure today by calling 855-890-0676 or visit our website at ingrace.tv/travel.
Join us next week for part 2 of our InGrace Alaska adventure.
This is really fun. You can hear the clanking of the rails. It's a small gauge train, but very touristy, but it's really fun and it's beautiful. Like the scenery is incredible on both sides of the track.
Record every single InGrace episode. You will be so blessed as we learn all about God's world and God's Word. InGrace is a viewer-supported ministry. Thank you for your prayers and gifts.